Democrats in California are asking Canada to end the boycott on U.S. wine. The senator says it's causing devastating harm to wine growers and is urging the Canadian government to recognize that California doesn't agree with these tariff wars, to lift restrictions and increase consumer options to strengthen both economies. But it doesn't look like Canada will back down. Several Canadian provincial liquor boards stopped buying American alcohol last year in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. What do you think? Should Canada end the boycott on American alcohol?
It's clear that the ban on American booze is working. So if Trump wants to negotiate an end to the trade deal that he started, we're happy to get a fair deal for Canadians. But until then, the U.S. booze stays off the shelves.
A trade war that started with tariffs has now turned into a battle over something sitting on store shelves: alcohol. American wine producers, lawmakers, and businesses are now warning that Canada's boycott of U.S. alcohol is hurting their industries, especially California's wine market. But here's the interesting part. This boycott didn't happen out of nowhere. After the United States placed tariffs on Canadian goods, several Canadian provinces responded by removing American alcohol from government liquor stores. Now, months later, some Americans are asking Canada to put those products back. But while some Canadians are celebrating the success of the boycott, others are asking a different question. Is this strategy costing Canada too much? In today's video, we're looking at both sides of this trade fight. The Americans who say the boycott is hurting them, the Canadians who say it's working, and the people asking whether the price is worth paying. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more stories about what's happening across Canada and around the world.
Canada's boycott of U.S. wines causing devastating harm, California senator says. Did I read that right? Nah, I must have read that wrong. Canada's boycott of California wine is causing devastating harm to wine growers. I'm urging the Canadian government to recognize that California doesn't agree with these tariff wars. To lift these restrictions and increase consumer options to strengthen both our economies. No. I'm reading this right. Canadians, I think I'm confused. I think I'm confused because I remembered it was just a year ago. Donald Trump got on national television and said he needed nothing. Scratch. America needed nothing from us Canadians. Nothing. Actually, a few months ago, his administration, Howard Lutnick, went on national television and was joking about it, saying, we don't need anything from Canadians. Nothing. Nah, you guys are fine. This is fake news. This is what Donald Trump has been warning everyone about. This is fake news. Ignore it, Canadians. Until next time.
They said, like, we're doing all these 50% tariffs because Canada's discriminating against the United States with the alcohol ban. And what they're leaving out is they were in retaliation to American tariffs.
Premiers were asked about that. David Eby in BC, Doug Ford in Ontario, who have, like, obviously two of the largest bans. And they were asked, like, are you willing to back down on those? And immediately both were like, 100% no. And then Doug Ford was basically went one step further and said, we could take America apart piece by piece with our energy if we wanted to. and basically, like, I was sort of implied, let's start World War III. But, like, there is a little part of me that I'm like, get him, Doug. Yes.
We're going to destroy you with our energy is such a, like, Dragon Ball Z villain thing to say.
Doug Ford just powering up across multiple episodes.
Nobody tell Ford my good ideas. I don't want him profiting off them.
U.S. members of Congress are crying like babies because Canadians don't want to buy U.S. liquor anymore. California Senator Adam Schiff says Quebec's restrictions on American wine are causing devastating harm to growers. He asked the Quebec Premier to lift them because California opposed Trump's trade war. Adam, do you know what this is? It's the world's smallest violin. Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York has introduced the Canada Act, It would order the United States Trade Representative to investigate provincial liquor boards for unfair trade practices. Tenney thought it was outrageous that only 2 countries responded negatively to Trump's tariffs, China and Canada. So you're upset because we stood up to the bully Trump? These people are forgetting that Trump started this trade war, and now they're upset because one of our strategies to defend ourselves is working really well. Donald Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods while repeatedly talking about making Canada the 51st state. He threatened our sovereignty. Canadian provinces responded to the tariffs and the annexation threats by removing American liquor from public stores. And Canadians support the move. Canada-made wine and liquor sales have jumped 75%. In other words, we don't want your liquor anymore. The United States Supreme Court has struck down Trump's broad tariffs, including duties on Canadian goods. But Canadian steel, aluminum, vehicles, and lumber still face tariffs, which are hurting Canadian businesses. If you want U.S. liquor back on the shelves, then tell your boss to remove the tariffs. But I don't think Canadians are going to start buying your liquor again anyway. So stop your crying.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney said today, I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that America should hold his beer when it comes to complaints over a ban on U.S. liquor sales in most Canadian provinces. Canada will not budge, Carney said, because President Trump's tariffs started the trade scuffle between the United States and Canada, and Canadian provinces, he said, are in no mood to relent.
Well, we got to stick up for ourselves. And if the Trump administration attacks us, we have to push back.
So, why are American businesses suddenly asking Canada to change course? The biggest complaints are coming from states like California, where wine producers say losing access to Canadian consumers has created serious problems. California Senator Adam Schiff has argued that the boycott is hurting wine growers and has called on Canadian provinces to remove restrictions on American wine. The argument from the American side is simple. They believe California businesses are being punished for a trade dispute created by politicians, not by the farmers and workers producing these products. And some wine producers say the effects are already being felt. Canadian buyers were a major market for American alcohol, and when provinces removed those products from shelves, businesses had to find other customers. But Canada's response is, this was not the first move. The boycott came after U.S. tariffs were placed on Canadian goods. Many Canadians see this as a form of economic pressure, using consumer choices to respond to government decisions. So, the question becomes, when countries enter a trade fight, should consumers and businesses be part of the battle?
Hi friends, I've been talking about boycotting the United States, which we should be doing. Donald Trump just does more stupid shit all the time. He's such an idiot. But I want to tell you, now follow me on this one, follow me. Right now there's the First Minister's Conference or whatever it is, all the premiers are together, and with Mark Carney too, I believe, and you know, they're going to discuss issues, and one of the things is the trade with the United States. Now, tariffs, follow me, tariffs only hurt the people that impose them, right? If we impose tariffs, it hurts our people. But there is some purposes for it. There is some good uses for tariffs. But I'll tell you something. United States liquor isn't on any shelves except for Alberta and Saskatchewan. Now, that's Danielle Smith and Scott Moe. I mean, we got donuts like Tim Houston and donuts like Doug Ford that have stopped the American. But Danielle Smith and Scott Moe, nope, bow down to the orange potato. Now, what we do is, as a group, Canada imposes tariffs on American liquor. Okay? What happens? Albertans and Saskatchewanites will have to pay more for their American booze. And it will hurt them that are bringing in. There's a benefit to the tariffs. Doesn't hurt us in BC here because we don't have it on our shelves and we can't buy it. So I think that's what they should do when they're together now. Impose tariffs on American booze so the two provinces that decided they'd bow down to Trump can pay for it. How's that sound? I kind of like that. It gets Scott Moe, Danny Sith. I like it. Like and follow, folks. Thank you.
Do the Republicans down in the States not see the hypocrisy? So some lawmaker from northern New York is having a go at Canada because 8 provinces, excluding my one, have pulled U.S. alcohol off the shelves. And apparently sales of U.S. alcohol into Canada have fallen by like 78%. But the hypocrisy of this is Canada pushing back on an unmitigated attack on not only our economy, but our sovereignty. I mean, going after just about every sector of the Canadian economy and global economies. And then, of course, the orange narcissist talking about the 51st state and taking over our country and the Prime Minister as governor and all of that. So some little pushback. Now, I now go out of my way not to buy American products. I was never this way in the past. Never, ever did I look at it. And I feel so badly because I like to buy greens and fresh veggies and all sorts of things from California. But, you know, I actually look at the source of origin. So when I do go and buy wine, I absolutely look for either Canadian wines or Chilean wines or Argentine wines or any of our friends around the world. But the hypocrisy to think that somehow we're the bad guy in this, we're the country being assaulted by your megalomaniac wannabe dictator. So, you know what, look in a mirror before you attack us.
On the Canadian side, the boycott has created some unexpected winners. Some Canadian wineries and alcohol producers say their sales have increased because consumers started looking for alternatives. For example, some local producers say removing American competition gave Canadian brands more attention and helped keep money inside local economies. Many Canadians who support the boycott argue, if we can support our own industries while responding to tariffs, why not? But there is another side to the story. The boycott has also created challenges. Some provincial liquor boards are dealing with millions of dollars worth of American alcohol that was removed from shelves. There are storage costs, inventory concerns, and questions about what happens to products that sit for too long. Critics argue that while the boycott sends a strong political message, taxpayers and consumers should ask, how much should Canada spend to make that message? Because even when governments make trade decisions, the financial consequences can eventually reach ordinary people.
Thanks to the ban on American booze, Ontario's Westcott Vineyards is expanding, and liquor store sales have jumped 600%.
We are leaning into this and expect our business to continue to grow, whether those products come back or not.
Owner Carolyn Hurst is happy to keep the ban in place and wants premiers to stand their ground.
It's been incredibly effective for small producers like us. Every dollar that's been spent on an Ontario wine and on a Westcott wine has gone right back into the province of Ontario.
There are new pushes from American lawmakers to get rid of the ban. California Senator Adam Schiff posted it's causing devastating harm. He sent this letter to Quebec's premier asking her to rescind it. While New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney launched legislation to investigate Canada for unfair trade practices called the Combating Attacks on Our National Alcoholic Drinks by Allies, or Canada Act.
Just want to get this deal done, and then we'll put that booze back on the shelves.
Ontario has held firm, while Quebec's premier's office told us in a statement this measure will remain in effect as long as the United States maintains these unjustified tariffs.
Canada is violating our own trade agreement with the Americans.
Former trade advisor to Stephen Harper, Meredith Lilly, believes the province is overstepped.
I expect that there is a dance happening behind the scenes, and it would be my preference if the provinces took cues from the federal government. It's my hope that the federal government is seeking to get them back on the shelves.
Lilly says the ban is a tricky situation to unwind. Ottawa can't publicly call for it to be lifted if the premiers hold firm.
About $500,000 a month just to have this alcohol sitting someplace and keeping it safe. I should note as well, it was $80 million worth of alcohol taken off the shelves. To date, about $2 million worth of that alcohol has expired. Now, generally speaking, alcohol has a long shelf life, but some kinds of alcohol, say if it's mixed with cream or something like that to create a liqueur, it has a shorter lifespan. That has expired and had to be removed and probably destroyed. So the question remains, what do we do with the inventory that's left? And is this boycott really having the same influence on consumers and frankly, even on Mr. Trump himself? If it's not, why are we spending $500,000 a month?
Doug Ford and his government needs to wake up and come up with some innovative solution so that the general public does not have to sacrifice.
They claim to be fiscally prudent in all this, but they're spending money in all the wrong places, and they've been doing it for as long as they've been in power. So, not surprising.
Do you think this taxpayer money should be put somewhere else specifically?
Housing, healthcare. Healthcare is in terrible shape. People waiting hours and 24 hours at emergency rooms.
Well, I feel like that money could be spent somewhere else for sure, whether with the homeless or whatever. Like, I understood kind of at the time doing that, but costing that much money now doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense.
We have to support more local, but I think they could have did it in a more strategic way in that they should not have pulled out everything and just have a ton load of inventory.
It's very symbolic, obviously, but it's like at a certain point, if you're spending $8 million on symbolism, they're more concerned about public relations and how they look to the public, and so they will spend $8 million to make sure no one's talking about the Greenbelt scandal, no one's talking about being investigated criminally for corruption.
It's one of the reasons why I want to ramp up negotiations and have those talks, but we got to keep something. We got to keep some of that leverage, and you can tell it is bugging them because they've brought up this extra 50% tariffs, right? That could be going, that could be happening, could be taking place in about a month. And when it comes to leverage, you can tell that American booze off of our shelves here in Ontario is really causing some issues when it comes to the president. And that's why I say we got to keep it. We just can't fold everything. I know a lot of you were yelling at me yesterday saying, Kyle, you're just folding if you're not standing tall. If you're not just kind of, I don't want to say standing on the sidelines, but just waiting it out as we get closer to the midterms. And a lot of you think that's what Mark Carney's doing with this one. And I don't think we can be giving up alcohol off the shelves.
At the end of the day, this story shows something important about trade wars. They rarely affect only politicians. They affect farmers, business owners, workers, consumers, and communities on both sides of the border. For American wine producers, the message is clear. They believe they are suffering because of a decision they didn't personally make. They are saying, we are not the ones who created this trade dispute, but we are the ones paying the price. On the other hand, many Canadians argue, trade decisions have consequences and consumers have the right to decide where their money goes. They believe the boycott has shown that Canada has options and that economic pressure can work. But there is also a conversation happening inside Canada. Some people support standing up to the United States, but they are questioning whether keeping millions of dollars worth of alcohol off shelves is the best long-term strategy. Because a boycott can send a message, but eventually, governments have to decide what happens next. Do you keep the pressure going? Do you negotiate a solution? Or do you find a different way to protect Canadian interests? The bigger lesson here is that in international disputes, there are rarely perfect winners. A decision that hurts one country's businesses can create opportunities for another country's businesses, but it can also create unexpected costs. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Canada's alcohol boycott is a successful way to respond to US tariffs? Or do you think the cost has become too high and it's time to put American products back on shelves? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more stories about politics, economics, and the issues affecting everyday people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.